is up? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day. Back with some more Resident Evil 4 Remake gameplay for you. And today I'm going to be talking about an article I just recently read, and it's talking about the Resident Evil franchise and talking about how the franchise needs 3 major deviations from past games to really progress forward. Now, this isn't going to be one of those things where I crap on the article, think it's bad. I just was curious to see how you guys thought about it as I give my own takes on it. But it remains to be seen that, Resident Evil is one of those franchises since its beginning has gone over a lot of major changes. And listed a few in this article, obviously, with the whole going from fixed camera angle to over the shoulder and into first person and maybe more of an action-oriented thing than survival horror. So it's gone over a lot of things. So it's nothing new for the franchise per se, but this article has 3 major things, so I'm going to go over. So I hear your guys' opinion about what you think about these things. Do you need to change these things, or are you completely against it? Let me know down below, but let's get right into it. And also, I'll leave a link in the description below if you want to check out the article for yourself. But without further ado, let's jump right into this. So the first point that they talk about that needs to deviate from the series is that they talk about scrapping the laboratory levels. Now, this is not the first time I have heard this. I've heard a lot of articles in the past year talk about this, and I'll be 100% honest with you. I'm not one of those guys. I've never had a problem with the laboratory levels. Like, I've always heard them saying that, it's always the same thing. It's at the end, and it's the worst part of the game, the pacing, or whatever it may be. I've personally never had a problem with the laboratory levels. I mean, you want to say, hey, maybe put it in the middle or something like that. I think Resident Evil 5 had it like kind of in the middle, and then the end was just basically the whole boat, and I guess they technically had a little bit of a lab on the boat too. But basically my point is I've never had a problem with the lab. I've always liked going to the laboratory and finding out what they've been up to, what they were making, and researching and stuff like that. But apparently, this article, and as well as seeing enough people say they don't like the laboratory section. So my thing has always been, okay, if you don't like it and you want to get rid of it, what are you replacing it with? As I said, I don't personally have a problem with it. I never have had a problem with it. But if you want to get rid of it, what is it going to be replacing it? That's my whole thing. So let me know in the comment section what you would replace it with. If you're one of those people that have a problem with it. If you're not, then I guess it's all cool nonetheless. But let's get into the next part, because that's the easy one. The other 2 points are points that I'm not the biggest fans of. And for point number 2, we have changed time periods. Now, here's the problem, okay? And I think a lot of people are kind of voicing, I've seen a lot of people lately voicing their displeasure with this. A lot of people are just mad that, like, Resident Evil has so much time in between games and stuff. I think one thing I will say that I liked during the first era of Resident Evil, the fixed camera angle, is all those games kind of took place in the same year, 1998, from Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, and Code Veronica. It wasn't like, one of them was 98 and the next one was 2004 or something like that. Then when you get to Resident Evil 4, it's a big gap. It's 6 years. And that's 6 years. And then when you get to the next one, it's another decent sized gap. And you're just thinking, you can have so many things in between. Why are the years so stretched out? So my point I'm trying to make here is that, changing time periods, what are you really asking? Are you asking to go, I don't know, really in the distant past or the distant future? And to me, I say hell no on both of them, unfortunately. It's like, I can understand going into the past, maybe like, taking place during the majority of Resident Evil games, but in the distant past, like before everything, no, absolutely not. And in the distant future, nobody wants to go in 20, I don't know the exact year, but when you see Rose as like a, in her DLC, no one wants to go into that era where all our fan favorite characters are basically old or in the retirement home or whatnot, or I guess if you're in Jill's case, just still gunning because they're all de-aging or whatnot. But you get the point. So yeah, change time periods. No, there's nothing wrong with the time periods. Just keep it in that similar group and stop spreading out the game so far in terms of the years. But let's get to the last point, and this is the one I think a lot of people have a lot of animosity against, and I definitely understand it. But their last thing they say is ditch science fiction, embrace the supernatural. Now, one of the big things that a lot of people have been really anal and kind of against in terms of the newest, latest releases, not remakes, but in terms of like, Resident Evil Village and Resident Evil 7 is they don't like the fact that the game's kind of really knocking into that folklore, supernatural side. And my thing is this: you can't ditch the science fiction. It's what Resident Evil has always been. It's science fiction. Basically scientific experiments to create, whatever creature they have on their mind. And my thing is, you can have elements of supernatural. I guess the whole adage, bend don't break. Like, you can have an element or two of it. I don't have a problem with that. But when you're asking, ditch, basically what's been a part of every Resident Evil game in terms of, experiments and, creature being created, and then you say, oh, it's supernatural. Basically, then what's even like that to me? And I've always been that person where I can have things slide a little bit, but that's one of those things I don't think you can slide in terms of that direction and get away with it. That's where you can basically make an easy case that, okay, then it's not really Resident Evil. Then Resident Evil at its heart and soul will always be science fiction and laboratory experiments. The supernatural just no. Like, as I said, I'm not mad at like that you have werewolves and lichens and stuff like that in the game, but don't tell me that, oh, they're just part of mythology and folklore and they've always been there in that universe, and not that it was because of some science experiment or something like that, or whatever the case may be. That's where you kind of push the meter, and I definitely get people really having a problem with that. So in terms of supernatural, as I said, you can have an element or something like that. That's fine. But at its heart and soul, it's always going to be science fiction. And so honestly, in this article, not really, the points they make here really, I don't think are points that are really going to make, I think they would do more harm than good. Because the time period part, no, I don't want to see Resident Evil in some massive, time period in a distant, like the 1950s. If they want to do something like, with, I don't know, the Spencer or Oswald or something like that. And I clearly don't want to see a massive Resident Evil game in the future, distant future, with Rose or someone where all our favorite characters are either over the hill, dead, or in retirement or whatnot. So that's going to be a huge no for that one. Embracing the supernatural, no. Then that's when you can finally say, hey, this just kind of isn't Resident Evil. I said they've flirted with it, and I've allowed them to do that, and that's fine. But you can't just be like, that's basically like saying we're a running football team. We've always been a running football team, and then magically, when it comes playoff time, we're just going to magically abandon that and become a passing team. We haven't done that the whole year. Like, no, you just can't do that. You got to be what your bread and butter is. And Resident Evil is always going to be a game about laboratory experiments and people experimenting on stuff and maybe playing God and trying to, create some new bioorganic weapon. And I said that, the viruses, the bioorganic weapons, they can evolve. They can be deadly. And I said once in a while you can have maybe an element of it, but never what they're suggesting. That's just, I don't see a lot of people going for that either. But to me, I'll leave you this. First off, what do you think about these 3 points? Changing the time periods, ditching the laboratories, and embracing the supernatural. What do you think about those 3 things? You want any one of those 3 things to be a part of, the newest Resident Evil, or is there something else you want to happen in Resident Evil that would be a major deviation that wasn't listed? I want to hear some thoughts and opinions, because as I said, I do feel like there are some things that they do need to think about, because once again, you never want to get stale to the point where you're just releasing the same thing year and year, because eventually people will get tired of it. So you want to keep it new and fresh. So what new innovations and deviations from the series do you think they need to make? Let me know down in the comment section down below. But thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video, and hopefully I can see you guys back on the next one. Thanks, and I'll see you all later. Peace.